Hello friends, welcome to my video. Today I am going to talk about composition versus aggregation in C Sharp. We'll learn what they are and their key differences. Finally, we'll discuss when to use each. So before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell icon. That way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Composition versus aggregation in C Sharp. So composition and aggregation are important concepts in C Sharp. Understanding these concepts is essential for designing robust and flexible software systems. In C Sharp, composition and aggregation are basically two different ways of establishing relationship between classes. Both composition and aggregation involve one class having a reference to another class, but they differ in terms of ownership and lifetime. Okay, so what is composition? The composition represents a strong relationship where one class is composed of or contains another class as a vital part. The composed class cannot exist independently of the owning class. It implies a whole part relation. In other words, we could say if our class is creating the object of another class and the lifetime of both of the objects are the same, then it is called composition. Okay, so how to represent composition in UML diagram? If you see, this is the symbol we are going to use in order to represent this composition in UML diagram. Black diamond, right? So this is symbol we are going to use as a part of presentation of the composition in UML diagram. There is a two class, engine and vehicle, right? And these two class are showing the relationship as a composition relationship. Okay, let's try to understand with the help of example shown over here. So here there is a class named engine that has two methods, a start method and a stop method. In a start method, I'm just printing this engine started into this console window. Similarly, in a stop method, I'm just printing engine stopped into the console window. Now there is another class named vehicle that owns an instance of the engine class. That's what I have written, private engine obj engine. Notice I have marked with the private access modifier. Vehicle class basically is going to own this engine. Now there is a constructor vehicle where we are instantiating this engine class, and that's what I have written, obj engine is equal to new engine. Now there are two methods, start vehicle and stop vehicle. In start vehicle, I'm just calling this start method of the engine class with the help of object of engine class, right? That's what I have written, obj engine dot start. Similarly, I'm just calling the stop method of engine class. So that's what I wrote, obj engine dot stop. So if you notice, the vehicle class cannot exist without an engine, and when the vehicle is destroyed, the engine is also destroyed. The tight coupling reflects a composition relationships over here. Okay, let's switch to the Visual Studio and see all these things in action. Here we are on Visual Studio. Here we are going to see the demo of the composition. For that, what I have done, I have created one console application, composition versus aggregation. In this console application, we have program.cs. In program.cs file, there is a namespace named composition versus aggregation. There is a class named engine that has two methods, a start method and a stop method. What a start method is doing, it is just printing engine started into the console window. Similarly, a stop method is just printing engine stopped into the console window. Now there is another class named vehicle. This vehicle class owns the instance of this engine class. That's what we have marked with the private, right? So this engine class belongs to this vehicle class. So vehicle class and engine class lifetime will be the same. So here what I'm trying to do over here is, here I'm just creating an instance under this constructor itself. That's what I have written, obj engine is equal to new engine. Now there are two methods, start vehicle and the stop vehicle. Start vehicle, I'm just calling this start method of the engine class. That's what I wrote, obj engine dot start. Similarly, I wrote obj engine dot stop for stopping vehicle, this stop vehicle method, right? Now there is a final class named program that has main method, which is an entry point of this application. Here what I'm trying to do over here is, I have just written this composition demo in C Sharp because I'm just giving the demo of the composition. That's what I just want to print it in this console window. That's why I put over. Now here what I'm trying to do, here I'm just creating an instance of this vehicle class. That's what I have written, vehicle. The vehicle is equal to new vehicle, and I'm just calling this start vehicle method, right? So once we write this start vehicle method and stop vehicle method, this method is going to get invoked, right? And eventually this obj engine start method is going to invoke. We are going to call this a start vehicle. Similarly, stop method is going to invoke of the engine class when we are calling this stop vehicle, right? And that's what we have just called that, and it is just going to call this method, and this method is basically written in this engine class. It is just going to get executed. That's what we would be able to see this engine started and engine stopped into the console window. Let me execute this program and see the output. Okay, so output got appear into this console window. See, the composition demo in C sharp got printed, and engine started and engine stop method got printed. And this method is printing from this start method and stop method. And this start and stop method is getting called from this start vehicle, where we are just calling this start method, and stop vehicle we are calling this stop method. And these start vehicle and stop vehicle method I have called from here, right? Line number 44 and 45, where we are just calling this start vehicle method with the help of object of this vehicle, right? That's what this statement got printed. So basically this is the relationship I just want to show you. This is nothing but the composition relationship, where vehicle class is basically own this engine class itself, right? And this vehicle class cannot exist without an engine. When the vehicle is destroyed, the engine is also destroyed. Now let's see what is aggregation. Aggregation is a weaker relationship where one class is associated with another class, but they can exist independently. It represents a looser coupling. In other words, we could say if our class is creating the object of another class and the lifetime of both of the objects are not the same, then it is called aggregation. Now, if you see how we are going to represent aggregation in the UML diagram, so this is the way. Basically, one single line and the hollow diamond, right? So this is the way how we are going to represent aggregation in UML diagram. So here there is a relationship between address and imply, and this is the relationship nothing but the aggregation relation. Okay, now let's try to understand with the help of examples. So here there is a class named address. It has three auto implemented properties: street, city, and country. And there is another class imply that has two properties. First one is the name and the second one is the address. And if you notice, now there is another class named imply that represents imply with a name and address. So the address class represents an address with properties for a street, city, and the country. So here if you notice, imply class has an aggregation relationship with the address class. That's what I have written: public address gets it. Okay, let's switch to the Visual Studio and see the demo of the aggregation in C sharp. Here we are on Visual Studio. Here we are going to see aggregation demo in C sharp. For that, what I have done, I have created this composition versus aggregation demo class, and we have this program.cs file. So in program.cs file, what I have done, I have created three classes. First class name is address, where we have three auto implement: street, city, and the country. The second class is imply class that has name and address property. And if you see, this address property is basically represents the street, city, and the country of this particular class, right? So this is nothing but the relationship between address and imply that shows the loose coupling, and that's what it shows the aggregation, right? So basically I have just included those things. So basically I have aggregated this address class as a property into this imply class. Now there is another class named program that has main method, which is an entry point of this. Here I have just written this statement in order to print this aggregation demo in C sharp into the console window, right? Now what I have done, I have created an instance, and at the same time I have initialized this attribute. That's what I have just written: address is equal to new address, and I have given a street is equal to 123 main street, city is equal to Frankfurt, country is equal to Germany. Basically I have initialized this address with the value. So here what I have done, I have created an instance of this imply, and I have initialized the value of this properties: name is equal to John, and address is equal to address, and this address is nothing but an instance of this address that we have initialized over here. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm just going to print this name and address into the console. That's what I have written: imply name is equal to imply dot name, address imply dot address dot street, imply dot address dot city, imply dot address dot country, right? So basically I'm just going to print the full address to the console window along with this imply name. Let me execute this program and see the output. So if you see, the output got appear into this console window. Aggregation demo in C sharp, imply name John got printed, address 123 main street, Frankfurt, Germany. So basically a street, city, and the country got printed as a part of the address, right? That's what it shows: the aggregation relationship between the imply and the address class. When to use composition and when to use aggregation in C sharp. When deciding whether to use aggregation or composition in your code, it's important to consider the nature of the relationship between the classes and the desired behavior and ownership semantic. Here, what I'm trying to do, here I'm just going to mention the deciding factors by which you yourself could decide where aggregation or composition is typically appropriate. So, number one deciding factor is ownership and life cycle. Composition implies that the owning class is responsible for the creation, destruction, and life cycle of the composed class, whereas aggregation does not imply ownership, allowing the associated class to exist independently. Whenever we are going to consider aggregation and composition, we need to consider this ownership and life cycle in mind. Number two, encapsulation. Composition reflects a strong coupling. What does it mean is composed class is tightly integrated with the owning class. There is no flexibility. Whereas aggregation provides weak coupling. Aggregated class is loosely integrated with the owning class. Thus, it provides more flexibility. Number three, code reusability. Aggregation promotes code reusability as the associated class can be shared among different aggregating classes. So whenever we want to achieve code reusability, we can consider aggregation. Number four, complexity. The composition may introduce more complexity due to tighter coupling, but it offers more control and guarantees the existence of the composition. It basically depends upon the requirement, where if it is needed the more control, then we can go for the composition. Otherwise, we could opt aggregate. So these are the deciding factors that will help you to choose between aggregation or composition. This that brings me to end of my session. To sum up, in this video we saw what is composition, what is aggregation, when to use composition and when to use aggregation. I hope you found it informative and valuable. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. That's all for this video, guys. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends and colleagues, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done already. Thanks for watching. See you next video.